Welcome and welcome back to the Marnie on the Move podcast. I'm your host, Marnie Sauer. Today on the podcast, I'm syncing up with David Magida, Hyrox North American Champion 2023, Hyrox Head of Programming, and founder and owner of Elevate Interval Fitness in Washington, D.C. You may have seen some of my posts on social about training for this big Hyrox event in New York City, which happens to be this weekend. You may have seen me taking classes at Tone House and some pop-up events with strength cardio workouts, ultimately training for this event this weekend, which now I am not doing because I have a small injury. Today on the podcast, I'm syncing up with David. He dials me into all things Hyrox, from where it began, how the sport is growing, training, and race day strategy. Plus, he shares where his journey into Hyrox began, how he went from a collegiate runner to being on the founding team for the Reebok Spartan Race, and now being the 2023 North American Champion of Hyrox. Simultaneously, David has built his own fitness business and studio, Elevate Interval Fitness, in Washington, D.C., and is celebrating 10 years in business this year. We talk about his training, his racing, and how he does it all. Get ready for a super inspiring conversation. If you like what you hear, leave us 5 stars on Apple, leave us 5 stars on Spotify. Also, feel free to share this conversation on your social channels in LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you like to get social. All right, let's get into it. My conversation with David Magida. Tell me a little bit about your background, how you went from a collegiate runner. For my listeners who don't know you, who aren't dialed into the world of Hyrox, how you kind of got started on your whole fitness journey from running in college to being a world-ranked competitive obstacle racer to transitioning to Hyrox, and now you're the North American champion. So, yeah, take me back.
Yeah, I've always been an athlete, and I was, I played a lot of individual sports as a kid and team sports. So obviously, the usual things, kids played soccer and stuff like that. But I found for myself, I was always drawn to these individual sports, swimming, wrestling, running, because of this idea of being able to control your own destiny, and you don't have to rely on anybody else. It's really just you against your competition. And it's about the work you put in, the effort you put in, your willingness to put yourself out there, and there's nobody to blame but yourself if you don't come through. So for me, that was always just like an enticing thing about it. And I love team sports, but there is something about like the journey, the training journey and the competition journey of racing as an individual. And so I went to college. I ran briefly in college, and this is a long time ago. I'm turning 38 this summer, so I'm not old by any means, but I would say in terms of like being a competitive athlete at the highest level, definitely on the older side, and like kind of working my way through what is going to be the next stage of my athletic career. But this was 2004 that I was running in college. This is 20 years ago.
Where'd you go to college? Where are you?
I ran briefly at Bucknell University, and then I wasn't really happy with the fit, with the team, with the coach. I just stopped running, and I didn't run for a few years, and then picked it up again in graduate school, started running marathons and discovered Spartan Race, and that led down a whole journey of obstacle racing. And I was really into like lifting weights and being strong and all of these other things that you didn't get to do as a runner. My coaches were like, you're not allowed to lift weights, because my first year I wrestled, I put on like 25 pounds of muscle, and my coaches were like, no lifting weights for you. So my body always wanted to be big. And so, when I finally started getting into competitive racing again, it was obstacle racing all over the country, all over the world. It's led me on some really incredible journeys, running in the Middle East and running in Mexico and now with Hyrox, it's like all of a sudden this kind of emerged and right around the end of COVID. And, we'd all been looking for stuff to do. And it was like during COVID, it was like run as much as you can because there's nothing else to do.
There's nothing else
And
to do. Yeah,
I was running
nothing
like,
was open. Yeah.
I was running like twice a day. I just like was like, oh, I guess I'll go for another 8 mile run, another 10 mile run. Like, got to kill some time.
I have to say,
And
I went to like Target and bought all the dumbbells because I was like, I don't know how long we're going to be stuck inside, and I have to do something.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so like, just I'll backtrack. I own a fitness studio now. I've had it for about 10 years. It's
Yeah, I
called
was going to ask
Elevate.
you about that. Yeah.
We're in Washington D.C. and when we had a mandatory closure, it was like 4 months that the city wouldn't let us be open. We
Right.
were spending our time, doing online programming and teaching some outdoor classes and stuff. But one thing that we did was we ordered a shipping container of dumbbells from China. Like I took orders, people prepaid,
Yep.
and when you couldn't find equipment online, but you could go straight to a factory and say, hey, like I need 5,000 pounds of dumbbells and
Right.
have them drop it off. So yeah, we did that. And like COVID, I was basically just running a ton. I started running marathon. I picked up marathons again. I hadn't run one for like a decade. I ran the JFK 50 miler because they were like, we can socially distance that. They had us running with like buffs over our faces for 50 miles.
Oh my God.
But
I know someone else that did that, actually. That's so
it was
funny.
great.
Yeah.
It was
Did
like a
that.
really memorable, great way to like get through a season. I did some 12-hour races, like digital ones, or like where you just log every 5 miles, you just uploaded it and then took off on your next 5 mile run.
Yeah.
We and I ran like 70 miles that day. Like we just found ways to stay busy. And then all of a sudden, Hyrox was like, "Hey, we're coming back," and they announced this Hyrox Invitational in Texas because, of course, like first thing was going to be in Texas,
Yeah.
and they basically organized like we want to invite some of the top athletes in the world to come compete in this thing to kick it off. And I initially was invited and then uninvited, and so I made a big stink online, started like getting everybody to put this like hashtag Let Magida Race thing going, started talking a lot of trash to get into this race. And I'd never run a Hyrox, so I'd always been super interested, but once I had initially been invited, I started really like, let's focus on this, let's train for this thing.
Right. Right.
And I put in like a big training block for it. And I'd come off of great conditioning. I was coming off of a 50 miler season, so my engine was great. I just needed to get strong again. And the invitational rolled around. I ended up finishing second place, and just realizing like, oh, okay, there's something here. Like I really want to do this. And so later that year, I finished fifth in the world at World Championships, and then this past year winning North American Championships in 2023, it just was like, this is my sport. And I'm like a very large guy for a runner. I'm almost 200 pounds. And
Okay. And how tall are you?
I'm about 6 feet tall.
Okay.
I ran, and like for like those who listen here, I'm assuming mostly runners.
Runners,
I ran the New York.
triathletes, cyclists. Yeah.
Cool.
I
Okay.
would
So
say. Majority. Yeah.
so like for perspective on like my like where I lie on like the spectrum,
Yeah.
I ran the New York Marathon in 2021, about 6 or 7 weeks after the Hyrox World Championships. I just put in a microcycle and ran the New York Marathon in 2:37. So
That's
like I'm
amazing,
a
though.
very large guy to run.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great time. I mean, that's really great. But you have to be strong to be able to. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about strength training that a lot of runners, a lot of triathletes, including myself, are like guilty of not doing, which is why I'm so psyched about Hyrox, because for me, it's a good mix, and it also kind of keeps me accountable, like going to take the classes and having this competition. I already feel like I'm a little faster on my runs just because I've been lifting and doing, the sandbag squats, walking across a room, things like that.
Are you mostly doing Ironmans and stuff?
I do 70.3 and half marathon. I like the half distance because I can train manageably and finish respectably for myself in my own mind. So those are my things.
Anytime like I'm coaching people and they're training for half irons, marathons, whatever, it's so this like singular focus on it that what they realize is they're like, man, I'm like really slow now. And like you lose like your speed because you have to do all this zone 2 volume. And so the cool thing about training Hyrox is like you don't need to be insanely fast, but you get to tap into your threshold paces like a little bit more. You get to
Yes.
use your strength. The cycling strength really translates over nicely if you do a lot of cycling. Like just people that have functional power, it really goes a long way to being decent at Hyrox.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it feels like. I've done a couple classes and I really have seen the benefits, but also like I know, like, as someone who has been training and doing all these races for like, I don't know, like over a decade and just in the fitness industry, like I know that there's so much value, but it's like getting yourself from the singular focus on sports specific training to like adding something new to the mix and finding the time that makes it, I think, the most challenging. And also, like, as a runner and a triathlete, cyclist, and all those things, like I go to the gym and I just like stare at stuff and I know what to do, but like I just stand there and I'm like, oh God, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stand here for 45 minutes and do deadlifts. But what I love about Hyrox is that, first, I love the group classes. I love that. That's great. So, I mean, I know that we're going to talk about training and everything, but I also know that is your gym, Elevate Interval Fitness in DC, is that gym a Hyrox style gym too?
Yes and no.
Tell me about your gym. Yeah. So when did you get into the fit? It's just off of me.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, like I like to tell people, and I say this all the time, like we've been training Hyrox since before Hyrox existed. My gym opened in 2014. Hyrox didn't even emerge till 2017, didn't hit the United States until 2019. And didn't get big in the United States really until this past year. And so now all of a sudden everybody's like, Hyrox. And it's like, yeah, man, this has been around. But we've been training this style of like compromised running and like blasting the legs and learning to run through it. And like this has been a reason that my skill set translated so well to Hyrox is because my body's been doing this for a decade longer,
Right.
And so it's one of those things where, we have Hyrox specific classes. We have classes that are not Hyrox specific that are just for people to come work out. My studio in particular, we have 4 main large group classes that we run. We have got a strength class, an endurance class that's mostly running with some machine work and some other things sprinkled in.
Yeah.
We've got a class we call Hit and Run that's like a bit of running, a bit of strength.
That's cool.
Really fun. And then we have another HIIT class that I call our functional HIIT class, which is like interval stations. And it's a lot of you're pushing sleds and you're skiing and you're lifting weights and then maybe you're running a bit, but it's less built around the treadmill. So, and then we have some small group training, and one of those classes is like a barbell program, and one of them, those are more like programs where you're like building week over week. And in those, like we have a hybrid athlete program that's for people training for Hyrox and things like that. And so that's been like my most popular program that we run at the gym. Like Hyrox definitely, everybody's behind it. They're training for a very specific goal, like get better at this race after race after race. They're like trying to improve. They're finding their weaknesses. They're focusing on them. They're training as a team. They're traveling as a team. It's race uniforms and sharing hotel rooms and team dinners. And like I literally, while you're here on this chat, I just got 4 messages from someone about like, we should rent a big van. We're going to go up to the Toronto race. We're going to drive across the border and go see Niagara Falls. Like it's definitely like this community vibe to it. That's really special because when you're a runner or when you're training for like an Ironman, you do so many like lonely miles alone. It's so nice to bring this together.
Yeah. I think I really, I've noticed that a lot in my running and triathlon stuff, that it's always so much better to be in a group. And actually, when I took a class here in the city, training for the Hyrox event, I felt like there was such a cool community. I met so many people. I have like all these new friends that I met.
Where'd you go? Which
I
gym?
went to a pop-up. First I went to there was a Hyrox pop-up in Union Square, and it was like a private class, I guess. And then the second I went to Tone House, which I've known Tone House forever. I just never took the classes. And then, since I started, connecting with everyone at Jack Taylor and doing, training for the Hyrox, which is a whole other part of this conversation that I have not really been training. So I'm not really sure how it's going to go.
But you're going to be fine.
I'm just here for the party. I'm here for the party. Like, I'm covering it. I'm going to the event. I will be disqualified by the second set of, like, throwing the ball at the wall. They will be like, your form is off, and I will be out. But I'm going to go, and I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best. But yeah, I took it at Tone House. It was so much fun. Everybody was so nice.
There's a few
was my
good
first time.
spots.
Yeah.
There's a few good spots in New York to hit up for sure. And there'll be a lot
Fair.
more soon.
Yeah.
Like Hyrox is blowing up. It's going to be everywhere. My role with Hyrox now is that I am the global programming director for the 365 program, which is the group training program. So we're essentially putting out like an app so that they can provide workouts to like any partner gyms. And we'll have a bunch of different class formats that kind of suit people's needs and provide a roadmap for athletes to really train in a group setting, and gyms that don't know how to coach it, but they have a dozen athletes or 24 athletes or 100 athletes who want to train for it. Like, we'll help you. We're helping you with that.
Yeah. I was going to say, so like, what is Hyrox? Just, I know what it is, but just tell my listeners, right? Because I've been talking about it on social, everyone's hearing it. Like, what exactly is it?
So Hyrox they call themselves the World Series of Fitness Racing. And the best way to describe it is almost like if a functional fitness competition met a running race. And so it's 8 rounds. Each round is a 1,000-meter run followed by a fitness station. And those fitness stations, when you start to really break down how they're laid out, it makes a lot of sense. The first round is a ski erg. And then you run again, and then it's sled push for 50 meters, sled pull for 50 meters, and then a round of burpee broad jumps, that's 80 meters. So there's your first 4. Then you have another machine. So just like you did in the first round, on the 5th round, you have a 1,000-meter row, just like you did a 1,000-meter ski on the first round. Run again, and then you have 200-meter farmer's carry with some kettlebells, pretty heavy. And then 100 meters sandbag lunge is round 7, and round 8 you finish with 100 wall balls and then run across the finish line. And so the whole idea is to blend this, like make this balance where runners can't just dominate because they're good at running. Strong people can't just dominate because they're strong. Everybody has to kind of focus on their weaknesses and push themselves specifically to kind of become a better, more well-rounded athlete. And the most well-rounded athlete is going to win.
Right. And so how long do you have from start to finish? Like, just, like when you do like... It's
vary person to person.
Really?
The average finish time is somewhere in the 90-minute range, give or take.
Okay.
Could be a little more, could be a little less. I've seen, 2 hours. The top athletes are going under an hour. And that's that's like the big... Back of pack? I don't know. I don't think you're going to be back of pack. I think you'd be just fine.
Oh, you have no idea. I was
the good news is the wall balls are last. So
okay, well, I was just going to say that's my weakness, I think. I can like move pretty quickly. I definitely the sled TBD on that, but the wall balls are definitely like I'm going to be so off form. And they have
Are you running individual or are you running doubles?
Individual.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Big journey.
I don't know. I didn't know if I should. I just signed up me. Like I could have. What is double? What's the difference? Doubles.
Doubles is you and a partner run all the runs together, but then you share the stations. I go, you go. The station work. So
maybe I should let Jack Taylor know that I should have.
Well, you got to find someone to do it with. They got to be a compatible runner because you're going to be running side by side the whole time. Okay. You have to stay together. So you don't want to be like, oh, my really strong friend. Like you want 2 people who are similar runners together.
Okay. It might be too late. If there's someone else that wants to do it, I'll ask them. But
here's the thing, Marnie. Like you do really hard.
Yeah.
You do really hard things. You run marathons and you do half Ironmans. Like this is just another workout. Okay. Like that's the thing I try and assure people all the time is like, you do hard stuff and everything, everything is as hard as you make it. So if you go out and massacre yourself on the front 20 minutes of this thing, you're going to have a long day. But if you pace yourself and you try and enjoy it, you're going to have a great time.
That's my jam. That's my plan. And that is my jam. I am planning to go, show up, do whatever I can, the best I can. And if it takes me all day, it takes me all day. I'm just doing it. But We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, like almost everybody finishes, like barring like an injury or like you feel sick or something like that. Yeah, pretty much everybody finishes.
And talk to me. I mean, since we're just talking about Hyrox and the event specifically, like you have so many great partners at the event as well, right? Like I know Gainful is going to be there, but there's a lot of nutrition and hydration partners and stuff there already that are like ready for all of the athletes who are coming to partake in.
Yeah, and like the partners change. So like I don't want to be like
All right.
I don't want to quote too many of these. I do know like Factor's been there for a lot of the races lately. They seem to be like the meal partner, so they're serving samples and stuff like that. And Powerlift is giving out free drinks at the finish line. And in general, like it's a really unique experience from the standpoint of like one, you're talking about like the world's first mass participation indoor fitness event. So like we've all run marathons or road races or whatever outside, and there's tons of people. But this is the first time that you'll run something where you're like, wow, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people racing indoors. It's pretty insane. So the energy is really, really high. Like I say the only comparable event that I've done in terms of energy is like the New York Marathon. And then there's just crowds. If your friends want to come watch you or your family, they can literally follow you from station to station. They can see you the entire time. They can see you you'll run multiple laps per 1,000 meters. So that you could high five your significant other 20 times during the race if you want to. It's pretty cool. So like I like to say, like you won't find like a better spectator experience for a race. Like when how many races have you done where like, you have people come to watch you and they're like, there I am, there I go. And then they don't see you for hours. Every race. Yeah.
And especially, in triathlon, like you don't even know if you're still on the course sometimes. Like you're out on your bike and you're like, wait, did I miss a turn?
Totally. And like, I feel that way when I've run trail races and ultras and stuff like that. I'm like, where are we on the course? I don't know. How long till I see another human? I don't know.
Yeah.
And in this, it's like, okay, there's people everywhere on the course. There's spectators everywhere cheering for everybody. And then there's music blasting. There's a sound stage. And like you finish on the stage, your time is blasted up on the screen. Like it's a spectacle. The whole thing, start to finish, is like this celebration of fitness. It's awesome. And you're going to have a really, really good time.
I'm sure. It sounds amazing. I'm so excited to do this event, and I've been loving the classes. So like, is that kind of what got you into it? Like what drew you into the whole world of Hyrox?
For me, it was like this opportunity to run this invitational, but then like once I ran one, I was like, okay, this is it. Like this is the thing that I've been looking for. And you're talking to a person who I've taken multi-year breaks from racing. One in college when I just needed a break. I've been racing competitively since I was like 11 years old. One when I opened my gym, like I was just like, I don't have time. So I just like stopped running. I was just focused on gym for a couple of years. And then I was like, no, I need to race. I miss this. And then again, like, during COVID, I wasn't really racing until like the end when they started actually putting events back on. It was like a whole year of like kind of just doing random stuff. Like where can I find like the Richmond Marathon put on a marathon, but like it was start whenever you want between like 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. like on the like for like 3 weeks. They just left the course open. And but like we weren't running real events. So like once I got a taste of how fun Hyrox was, and the training is so fun and different and exciting, because some days you go out and you run your zone 2, and some days you do your threshold work, and some days you get to really hit it on the bike or move your sleds. You're moving weights multiple times a week. Like it's just, sometimes you get to do those workouts where you throw it all together like a kitchen sink. And so it's just fun. It's just fun to train for. It's fun community, and it's kind of really, it's kind of become the centerpiece of what I'm training for, what hundreds of athletes at my gym are now training for.
And I mean, you are also a founding member, in addition to your gym, of the Reebok Spartan Race Pro Team. So I know you touched upon the fact that you had done Spartan races and that was kind of where you were before Hyrox, but like, how does this all come together? Like if someone's a runner listening to this or a triathlete, like what is, do you feel like this is like a great addition to what they're already doing? Like if they're looking for another kind of event that.
Yeah. I mean, I always said this about Spartan Race was like the whole idea of like you couldn't just be fast, you had to be strong too.
Yeah.
But over the years, they've really trended in a direction that is like less about strength and more about trail running and mountain running. And that,
Right.
like it started to appeal to me like a little less. And I think a lot of it was also like I was really tired of like coming home from races like with bloody knees and little infections and, like covered in mud and
Right.
poison ivy. And it was like, this is the other direction. Like Hyrox really trends to a direction that encourages and supports endurance while also requiring you to actually be strong. And then also it's in a controlled environment. It's indoors. It's clean. You're like, it's spectator friendly. And then when it's done, it's just like, okay, I'm in this, I'm not freezing. Like I feel good. Like this place is like, all I got to do is like throw on a change of clothes and you can just walk around and be happy for the rest of the day and go, have a drink while you watch your friends race. So it's like, it's a much more community experience.
That's very interesting that you mentioned that it's not freezing. So talk to me about what to wear or how to dress or how to be prepared, because I thought it was outdoors for some reason in New York City.
New York is going to be the outdoor race of the year. Okay. It's true. But awesome. It will be warm. It won't be warm out. Cold. Hopefully it's not raining.
It's covered. I think I know the pier because I run up and down and I pass it. Are you going to be here for that?
I will be there. I'm running doubles actually with one of the other guys who coaches at my gym, Eric Williams. So he and I'll have pro doubles.
Oh, awesome! That'll be fun. I'm going to try to find someone who's like sort of fit that wants to do it with me. I think I bumped into someone at a run. I'm going to see. I didn't know that. I didn't really know. I didn't ask a lot of questions. I don't think I just say yes. That's kind of my stuff. I just say yes to stuff, and then I'm like, wait, what did I sign up for?
I hear you. But, like, this goes back to that same thing. It's like, it's not worth it. Like, in life, it's not worth it to skip things that are awesome just because, like, you're kind of nervous. Like, you might as well just say yes to stuff and then, and then see what happens. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, it's going to be really hard.
Yeah, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, okay. Like, oh well, I guess it was really hard. And you know what? And people are like, well, I want to be more ready for it. And I'm like, you'll be more ready for your second one.
Yeah.
It's not like throwing someone into a marathon where you're like, hey, if you didn't train for like the last 6 months, like you actually may like go to the hospital afterward. Like it's not like that. I say it's like the effort level of a marathon condensed into like 60 to 90 minutes, but it's not from the standpoint of like your body has like enough in the glycogen stores and everything to get you through the race. In a marathon, it's like, okay, like if you aren't actually taking fuel, like you will just like run out of gas.
Do you need to use nutrition and hydrate? Obviously hydration, definitely, but nutrition, like what are you,
I take a gel typically around, after the 5th run going into the row. It's a good spot because you usually pass a water station. You could take the gel, take, a few ounces of water, and then you sit down on the rower. So it's like a moment to like not be like choking on a gel and you can like start rowing.
It's a good time to eat. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the only moment where you actually get to sit in the whole race. So it's like, okay, this is a good place. Like right before you sit down, just slurp that gel. And then it's also nice because there should be a trash can at that water station. You could just dump it right in the trash can and not just leave your stuff everywhere. And then you said earlier about clothes and what to wear. And I typically run in like compression shorts so I can slide a gel right in the pocket. And it's a little more comfortable for me than shorts. I get like really bad like thigh rub, like chub rub. And so I'm always a compression short guy. And then on top, I usually wear a tank top. You see all these photos and everybody's shirtless and it's like, guys, like it's not that hot,
Right.
So I typically want to, rep my gym, rep my sponsors, things like that.
Right.
Like I'm trying to make it a little bit more professional. Like all the shirts off stuff is like what the Wild West, like mud running, obstacle racing stuff was like back in the day. I'd like this to be a little closer to like road racing / Ironman where like people look kind of professional doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to kind of set that tone.
How do you pace yourself?
I think if it's your first one, I would say you want to aim to run like a marathon pace. Like it's not as fast as you're like, oh, I'm running 1Ks. Like I could rip these. You could for a little while. And it kind of really catches up with you on the back half of the race. And so I typically tell people like start conservative, don't fall into the trap of running too fast and then ski erging fast and then running fast again. And now your heart rate's through the roof and now all your strength is gone when you make it to the sleds. Like get to the sleds feeling pretty good so you can work the sleds without being dead. And then in a similar sense of how like when you're racing a marathon, you know, the race really starts at like mile 18 or mile 20. Like that's when it really begins. Like with Hyrox, the race starts when the sleds are over. So like after the sleds, that's when you can start. If you're like, okay, I'm ready. That's when you can start attacking the race.
Okay. And so if there's like, just back to so can I just do it at my own pace and not worry about winning?
Yeah, I think that's that's what most people are doing, you know?
Okay.
You're not running
like I'm not going to be competitive. Yeah.
No, you're not running. Like, this is no different than like if I show up, when I showed up to the New York Marathon, I have a specific goal. I want to run this time, right? And I had zero concerns about winning that race because I am literally light years behind the people who are winning that race. I'm not even in the same weight as the people winning that race.
Okay, so it's similar.
It's the same for you and almost everybody who shows up. It's like we as a society have to stop looking at at races as like a win-lose scenario because that's not really what it is. Like winning, one person wins, right? Like that's but everybody wins in the sense that like you have this unbelievable experience. You're not racing, you're really racing the clock and you're racing yourself and you're racing the course. And that's like we have to embrace this mentality of like I'm here for the journey and I'm here to get to like when things get hard, I'm going to find out about myself. Like that's winning, right? And so everybody stop trying to compare yourself to the person who finishes first place at these events because you're only going to disappoint yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's really great advice. I mean, I think that comes with experience, like knowing who you are in a race and what you're capable of and like comparing yourself only to you, but also like as someone like this is my first time doing it. So like when I did my first marathon in 2019, I had like some expectations, you know, but I also had no idea what to expect, which was kind of a bonus for me because I would have over thought about it and analyzed it. And I ran a little bit slower than I thought I was going to run, but in the end, like it was a great experience overall. And I only have that to compare myself to. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to with Hyrox. And I don't know how many new people, like, do you have a sense of how many new people have signed up?
Say typically like half the people at one of these races are new. Yeah. I mean, they have incredible retention. The races typically grow like 80% year over year from the year before. So it's still like relatively small in the United States as compared to other parts of the world. Like in New York, they have 5,500 registered. I think next year we'll probably see like closer to 8,000. But in the UK, they're starting to look at doing races that have like, they just did one with 4 days consecutively because they had so many registered. They're looking at like 5 consecutive days of racing where you might have 25,000 people racing at a single venue.
That's amazing. So
it's huge.
That's amazing.
And so
That's huge.
A lot of these people are returning. Like most of the athletes that I coach run between 2 and 5 Hyroxes a year. And they're traveling for them. It's a great excuse to travel, just like running a major or something like that. But you know, like how many Ironmans have you planned or half irons where you're like, well, that's a cool place. I should do one there.
That's how I do it. Yeah.
And not just doing it based on like, well, this is the fastest possible course, but like actually planning it like, oh, like I've always wanted to go to like Tokyo or something like really crazy like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of how people are doing this with Hyrox now. You see that with a lot of the Europeans where they'll be like in the UK and they're like, there's this great race in Malaga in Spain. I'm going to go there and go like be near the beaches. Or Get some nice weather, go on holiday for 4 days. And so in the States, I think it's more like we're still built around some big cities, but you'll see more and more of that, I think.
That's so interesting. It's like it feels like very accessible to get into, kind of like running, in the sense that like maybe like Tough Mudder or Spartan races were a little bit more challenging for people to get into for so many reasons, like mentally and physically. But Hyrox feels like even if you're not going to win, it's still a fun event. Like it's still fun just to go do it. Yeah.
The big thing is like, if you look at an obstacle race, it's like most people are going to find something that they're like, I don't think I can do that. Yeah. And if you look at Hyrox, every single thing is high fitness but low skill. And so that was very intentional. Like anybody can push a sled.
Now I understand.
Right? You can push like technique wise, there's not a lot to it. There's definitely the best way to do it, but it's not like you look at it and you're like, wait, how do I push a sled? Like, the next most complicated thing is going to be wall balls, but like anybody can pick up weights and walk with them. Anybody can put a bag on your back and do lunges. Like it may be really physically demanding, but it isn't technically demanding. And that lowers the barrier to entry. It's just like, are you willing to do the work? If you're willing to like push yourself, this is a great event for you.
Yeah, and I'm like one of the most uncoordinated people on the planet. So for me to be able to do it, and the only challenging thing for me was the sled, because I just have not pushed a sled. But now I've got it. I mean, not that I'm going to crush it, but I've got it down. The techniques, I'm totally type A technique. But so what do you recommend normally for people to train for these events? Like if they want to just be like average, not win?
The biggest thing is, I mean, obviously get some practice on sleds, spend time running into them, running out of them, like so you're fatigued going in and out. Practice your, like we could refer to it as compromised running, like just the ability to keep rolling and hold your tempos when your legs are really, really trashed. And that really translates over nicely to other longer fitness events too. And then, there's no limit to the amount of lunges and things like that you could do that will improve you. Like the people who do really well are the people who have legs on the back end of this race. So like if the lunges don't kill you and you still have legs to do wall balls, like that's a really great place to be. So I would say a lot of lunges and sleds between running is a great way to like high level become better at Hyrox.
And how many weeks out do you usually start training for this? Like people,
I would put months in, ideally. Like it's no different than the approach to really any other race. Like if you want to be really good at it, you need to specialize to a degree. At least be like, I'm going to do a 3-month block or something like that. But if you're already a relatively fit person who races all the time, like 6 weeks and it's okay. Like it's going to be okay. You can do it.
I think just running. I think thank God I have the running because and all the other sports that I do, but yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be challenging. I should have probably trained for it longer. But in addition to all the things that you do and you're coaching for Hyrox and you're competing in Hyrox, you also have a fitness studio, which we talked about earlier. So how is that going? How are you doing? Like you're 10 years into your business this year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough business to be in. Yeah.
COVID nearly killed us. We had 2 locations and we were about to open a third right before COVID. And then we scratched the 3rd location because of COVID. And then we closed one of our locations during COVID and just kind of poured all our resources into kind of surviving it. And then, the comeback was not the way we anticipated. We thought like everyone would be like so excited to get back to the gym, but people either had found their new at-home training routines or gotten used to training outside or had a Peloton or were just nervous to be back in groups or name 1,000 other reasons. So it was a very slow, incremental return to normalcy, which I think we only hit really in the last 6 months or so, really back to normal. And now all of a sudden you're like in public somewhere and you're like, man, it's like crazy to think that like all of a sudden, COVID feels like a distant memory, like it was a dream, like it was this thing that like totally took over our lives, and now it's like we don't even think twice about it anymore. But that definitely like that's how like we're out of this. And so for us, like the Hyrox stuff has really helped rejuvenate the gym from a membership base position, but also and standpoint, but also from like retention. People are just staying because they're just having a blast, and there's new culture in the gym again. Like we really had trouble rebuilding the culture, and this is really it's helped a ton. So if anybody out there is like kind of a gym owner, I would say like lean into the Hyrox stuff because it has brought our people together in a way that other events have not. Like we've had 5K, training groups and things like that. It's not the same. This is special.
Yeah. And what's the parallel for you as an athlete competing and being an entrepreneur and business owner? Like, what are some lessons that you kind of lean into from your sports and athletic background that you bring to your business and vice versa?
Well, I think the biggest thing is like the discipline and the work ethic. It really does translate because when you're running your own business, it's really up to you. It's if you want to succeed, if you want to find ways to succeed, it really is up to you. And then it's up to like obviously having an amazing team. Like I'm taking on like I have multiple business endeavors going on right now, so I'm leaning heavily on a team of people that I've been working with for years, and I'm fortunate enough that I have two guys on my staff that are helping me manage the place that have been with me for almost a decade, and that has enabled me to really kind of put more in their hands and trust them. And that's I think a big thing with sports. Like you need to trust teammates, and they have my trust. They earned it, and so that enables me to, when I have to fly to Europe for a week for other work projects for Hyrox, like I know that elevates in good hands. Right.
Awesome. This has been great. I mean, that's super awesome advice. And I look forward to meeting you.
Yeah, this is gonna be really fun.
Are you opening up other studios? Like, what's the future? Yeah. I'm laying on the floor after like the first set. I don't care. I mean, I'm just there to have fun. Honestly, I'm super competitive. But my MO is like, I'll show up. I assess the situation first time, see what I need to see. And I like to be surprised by challenges. So I'm sure that I'll be full of surprises. And then the next time I do it, I'll be more serious. But yeah, exactly. That's kind of like my MO. But I mean, you mentioned you have a back injury. Are you all right?
Yeah, I was pretty. I injured my back before World Championships last year, and so I raced in the championship race, and I was hoping like, oh, maybe it'll hold up for an hour, and it didn't, and I was like dead last. But for me, it was important to finish that event, and like life lesson, like things don't always go your way, but it's not a good excuse to just quit. So, and then since then, I've been kind of up and down, like my body was trending up, and then I re-injured the back, and it's been a journey. I'm hopeful that in the next 6 months I can get it kind of fully cleared up to get back to normal. But it's also, I'm also just trying to pour more into the business side of Hyrox and more with my athletes and be focused there. So like if my time at like the top is over as an athlete, I'm not saying it's okay, but there's more to it than that. So.
And you're also coaching. So how many athletes do you coach right now? We didn't really talk about that, but I know that you have.
Yeah. We brought 150 athletes to the Hyrox DC. So like a ton of athletes. And so we have, and then I have a whole bunch of athletes that don't run Hyrox. That's not what they do. Right. So I definitely am. I've got my hands full with those guys, and then but that is like my favorite part of coaching is coaching people in my hybrid athlete program who are into racing these events and getting them ready, and that's the most exciting part of my job. But I also just have great relationships and connections with like everyone who goes to my gym. Like it's fun to like be there for what's worked for me is like also maybe like the best part of their day. And so, it's not a bad gig to have.
And so you do one-on-one and group, or are you doing both?
I don't do one-on-one training. I don't have time.
Okay, so it's all group. Okay.
It's all group. Yeah. So we have large group with like 20, 24 people, and I have small group with 12 people. And then I even have some programs with like 6 to 8 people. So it depends on what our offering is specifically. And they're not all led by me, of course. Like,
I was going to say, are you still in the studio teaching at all, or?
Yeah, I still coach like 10 classes a week probably. And I still write our programming. So I'm very involved. It's just, there are other things happening, other things afoot.
You have to figure it all out, right? When you have a business, like, what are you doing? What can someone else do? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you, David. This has been so much fun. I look forward to meeting you in New York.
Yeah, we'll see you in New York.